but not least, please welcome to this stage the CEO of Cannabis One, Jeff Mascio.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. I know it's been a long stretch, especially if you were in Vegas for the last week with MJ Biz. But if I could tell you anything, it might be that we have something that's worth sticking around for, because what we believe we have here could be the first Fortune 500 company in cannabis. It's a vertically integrated cannabis play, but it's not focused on the traditional vertical integration. It's vertically integrated because when we first started out, there was no product to sell. So cultivation was an absolute must. So we had to begin in the cultivation space. Then that product was brought directly to market at a dispensary, which that was the beginning. That was when Colorado began the whole legalization movement that we see today, and all of the things that have happened since we all began because Coloradans passed Amendment 64. Well, we've been in that since the beginning, and what we recognized at the very beginning is we needed some model that was going to be relevant going forward without any information at all, because it was a blank slate of paper. So what we looked at was the alcohol industry. And when prohibition of alcohol was lifted, you saw a lot of the same thing going on, except for they didn't have to sell their raw material, but they were selling their raw liquor. It'd be the same thing as having a grain alcohol and taking it directly to market. We know that that's not the alcohol industry today. It is all about brands, and it is all about people going, looking for the brands that they consume and that they've consumed for years. Well, at Cannabis One, we are absolutely developing that house of brands, much like an NBEV. And these are the brands that we have today, either collectively owned by Cannabis One directly, or owned by a long-term manufacturing agreement, or tied up by LOI and waiting to complete our RTO, and then we will move forward with the closure of the acquisitions here. So all of these brands are best of breeds. So for instance, in our cultivation brand category, we have Cannabis, which is our first trademark that we registered with Colorado for our cannabis, or our cultivation brand. Then we have below that the Joint, which is our retail dispensary. The Joint is a concept that is branded in a way that's going to allow the bread and butter of the business to exist on the retail side. And what we've learned in all the data that we collect from the Joint is that the buyer is looking for a familiarity to where they are shopping. They're not looking to go too far from home. They're not looking for an amazing experience. It's consumed very frequently, so you want it to be convenient, you want it to be priced or affordable, and you don't want to have to wait in line. So with all of the data that we've collected from our retail sales at the Joint, and we do in excess of 3,000 transactions in a week out of a single location, out of each location, we know that what the consumer's looking for. We have the analytics to understand what their next product is. And we have the ability, through the acquisitions that you see here in Colorado, Washington, and Nevada, to manufacture in our collective facility in excess of 100,000 square feet. We have the capacity to today manufacture nearly 650 million in wholesale product. So now what we have to do is create the pull-through so that we can bring our manufacturing up to its full capacity. Right now we're operating at a 12% capacity. So just looking at the brands in general, where we have a lot of award-winning brands, as you can see on here, the newest addition I do want to mention is our relationship with Cheech's Private Stash. So we just recently inked a long-term manufacturing agreement with Cheech's Private Stash. So we're pretty excited about that, and I almost skipped past them when I promised that I would mention that here today, because they're pretty excited about being with us as well. A closer look at what we've done on the branding side. This is really the powerhouse of what Cannabis One is. We are touching our consumer at the highest levels and across all media platforms. And we're doing it in ways that is really not outside the box anymore. It's back to inside the box. It's back to what has driven consumer behavior for years. It's exactly what the alcohol industry figured out. And we are doing exactly those things. And we have been blessed with some of the best marketing people in the industry. And over here on the, I just want to point out some of these brands here. The Endeavor brand is a brand that we brought from its origin design the devices, which are, as you can see, we have a, what's a pen. It's actually modeled after a Mont Blanc pen in a sense, so it's a little sophisticated. And then a mascara and a lipstick, and then a key fob. Those are all delivery devices for our 510 threaded cartridges that are the Endeavor Fire. And you see in the bottom right corner, that's an image of our actual hardware that we've developed for the Endeavor Fire line. So this is the portfolio of brands that we have either accumulated or under contract to accumulate. And as you can see on here, they're all award-winning. To the joint that has been rated Leafly's #1 dispensary 3 years running. So we're quite proud of that, and we think that that is not just a proof of concept, it's a proof of our operating acumen. So the market footprint that we have today is a representation on some level in the 5 states that are orange. We are moving immediately into production and manufacturing and distribution and retail in Colorado, Nevada, and Washington. In those 3 states, we have, once we complete the amalgamation of all of the businesses we have under LOI, which we are buying in the retail space dispensaries that are already with operating revenue in excess of $3.5 million and net cash flow positive, obviously, but with a gross profit margin between 30 and 55%. And that's a stabilized revenue. So we are going out and buying out the best of breed in the retail space in these 5 states, specifically in Colorado, Washington, and Nevada right now for 2019. When we complete the acquisition of these various dispensaries that are properly positioned, properly staffed, properly ran, all we have to do then is come in and rebrand it under the joint concept. So we keep all of the top-level people that have been able to run their business, become a community, well-known establishment, and we come in and bring the portfolio of brands that we're manufacturing, plus the personality, if you will, and the branding of the joint. So we believe that by the end of 2019, we should have 30 new locations in those 5 states that will give us the ability to have the distribution channels and the data and intellect, and also obviously the revenue that comes with being in those 5 states from a retail perspective. The position we are in right now with our manufacturing is we are represented in 63 or 60 of the 63 dispensaries in Nevada. So that gives us the ability to more or less manufacture and distribute all of our products into the entire retail channel of Nevada today. And that's thanks to our partner and soon to be part of Cannabis One once we complete the LOI and definitive transactions, Evergreen Organics. And they are a #1 brand in Nevada, and they have risen to the top to the point where nobody could possibly look at Nevada and not see what Evergreen Organics has accomplished. And when we see that kind of acceleration, if you will, in front of everybody else, we wanted to know what that was all about. Now we have been working with Evergreen Organics for some time to the point where ultimately our partnership with them has begun before the retail of the recreational legality of Nevada happened. So we've been working with the best of the best since the beginning of really the epicenter of cannabis. And as you can see that representing down here also on the Hanu brand, they're in 363 of the 504 dispensaries in Washington. And talk about a difficult business. You've got more than 1,300 middle market producers going into what is, I think it's 300 or 400, don't quote me on that, dispensaries. But it is a very, very supply side imbalanced in the fact that you have all these manufacturers that are competing for this tiny little market. So what we did is we said, okay, who's doing that best? Because if you're a manufacturer in Washington and you're succeeding, you're pretty good at what you do. Because otherwise, you wouldn't rise to the top in such a competitive environment. So we reached out to Hanu and we let them know that we're around. And probably for the last 24 months, I'd say, we've been dating and getting to know each other just to get to the point where we believe in each other enough that we're going to blend our businesses together. And we use the term roll-up strategy. That's not really correct in what we're doing here. We're really building the pieces that bring us to a Fortune 500 company. A Fortune 500 company has what? They have a brand that's very recognizable. They have a top-level management team. They have market penetration. But the biggest thing they have is critical mass. What we have is all the things except for the critical mass. And when we assemble all of the businesses and people that we are working with today, as soon as we are completed with our RTO, we will have all of the management that we would ever want, meaning the top level management. We have the distribution, we have the professionalism to the top people in the industry, and all we're doing now is bringing everybody's vision, which is literally the same, together, and now we're moving forward, not as a 1 and 1 equals 3, but as a 1 and 1 equals about 23. And we're super excited as to where we're going, and so are all of our partners that we're about to complete. I mean, I've been using the analogy that what we had to do from the beginning till literally when cannabis prohibition is abolished is grow big enough. We needed to build a big enough surfboard so that when that happens, that tidal wave will not run us over if we were standing as if we were standing on a frisbee. So that's what we've been doing this whole time, and I think we have assembled what is going to be, all the pieces have been shipped, and now it's being assembled. And then we will have the best engine in the cannabis industry to penetrate what is a $50 billion industry, not because we need to create it from marketing, but because it's been there. And when in many, many lifetimes have you been able to be in the right place, right time, all of the sun, moon, and stars come together where we are the first company that can run out and literally take as much of that market share as we possibly can because we have the distribution, we have the brands, we have the branding, we have the learning curve, which is the biggest one, because if anybody in this industry knows anything, this is not an easy business. And we know that all of the people that have risen to the top have failed multiple times to get there. That's why it is such an amazing thing when you look at the assembly of who we brought to the table. It's not a roll-up strategy in a sense where we're not operating the business and we're hoping those people can do that. I came from the hedge fund industry, as many of us did, which is kind of funny. I think it's because we all just like risk. But the reality is that that background is entirely different in the sense where my whole job was to do nothing but move money from this place to this place in the hopes that all the people that were operating these businesses knew way more than I did. That is entirely different in the cannabis industry. What we realized being in business, like literally from the start, is every single business out there was a startup with us. You look to your right and it's, you're my CPA, what do you know? You've been doing my taxes for a while. You're my attorney, what do you know? I was across the hallway from the MED. And everything was a startup. But those people that survived from the beginning are truly the most talented people in the industry. And I can tell you that I know this for a fact because my co-founding partners who are sitting up here in the front row are some of the most talented people in the industry. And that is not an understatement when you look at what Brad Harris, who is done with the joint concept. We took this over when really nobody was thinking about cannabis, not even we were. We thought we were going to throw some money at it and that would be that. Then we had to get involved, and the first dispensary we bought was a 630 square foot shack in the Highlands in Colorado, and you literally would walk in and there's beads hanging from the ceiling. And we're looking around going, not seeing quite a lot of potential here. But what we ended up finding is Brad Harris, inside of literally 9 months, took our wildest projections, which was at a 630 square feet, we could only do $70,000 a week in revenue. That would be 5 years from now after we marketed it really heavily, became a brand name, all of these things that would have to happen. 12 months later, we were doing in excess of $160,000 a week in revenue. And that, to put that into perspective, it was I don't remember the exact number, between $13,000 and $14,000 US dollars per square foot of retail. Apple, one of the best retailers out there, does, I believe, $8,000. And don't quote me on those numbers, but I wanted to point out that what Brad did is he knew how to retail because he's been in the franchise space with Subway. He's owned more than 45 Subways, Big City Burrito, many of these franchises that are extremely difficult to operate, especially on a multi-location level. And what Brad has been able to do is motivate the people at the front line to believe in the business and not, I mean, I don't even know why. I'm not even going to begin to try to explain how he does it. All I know is this. He drives traffic and keeps everyone, our consumer and our employees, extremely happy all the time. And that is a very difficult thing to do, but I will tell you that it is a testament of the success for our ability to do more than $10.5 million out of 630 square feet with a temporary sign, and literally we were planning to move next door, and we reached our terminal velocity with still AstroTurf on the steps walking up to the building. It's quite a feat and accomplishment. And I can tell you that through all of the branding that we've done now and all of the understanding we have, I stand here as more confident than ever that what's about to happen with the joint concept is everyone in this room, and in fact, everybody in the world will know exactly who the joint is and what the joint stands for and represents. Just like you know In and Out. That we will be that level of a household brand on our retail end and in our manufacturing end. If we are simply able to market the way we know how and get the consumer to pull through the products that we are representing, and we're manufacturing them to the highest standards. We have the pedigree that designed the facility that we're manufacturing, that the product is being manufactured in, are ex-Frito-Lay. They understand how food manufacturing takes place. They understand how food safety must be absolutely imperative. So we have assembled the necessary people with the necessary manufacturing to be able to push all of our brands into the retail space, which we are also putting out our own retail channel in order to be able to be, because we are the front line. We can't expect everybody to catch up. And that's been the philosophy since the beginning, that we have to be the leader. And that's why we're bringing all of the businesses that have succeeded literally in the early stage cannabis together and becoming one company. And that's where we are in the acquisition phase. And then we're going to develop and enhance all of what we are all good at. So if we have all of the dispensaries in Nevada and all of the dispensaries in Washington represented by one of our brands, doesn't it make sense that we sell it through the same channel, all the brands and SKUs that we have? So that will be phase 2 as we move forward into 2019 and beyond. More 2020 is when we start to do the cross-representation. And we also believe this. We have to ignore what has been a boundary to business and set the trajectory in the reality that the federal government is going to remove the prohibition of cannabis. And if we make those assumptions and we operate in an environment that says, okay, when that happens, our business model is ready for it. We don't need to make any predictions. We have already set it up in a way that if that, then this, because we thought that far ahead. So as we move forward, it really doesn't change the outcome whether or not we see federal government remove cannabis prohibition. And we also recognize this. When that happens, there's also an interesting phenomenon that's going to happen in the medical space. So if you have a medical and a recreational license, you're thinking that relationship's going to continue forever. What happens when the same people that are allowing you to be in business, i.e. Big Pharma, that has billions of dollars to create blockbuster drugs that can target the cannabinoids in ways that none of us can? They have the science, and they start producing products that they are now bringing to market, and they're handling the channel of epilepsy and all of the cancer. We are not in the business of providing health care. We do recognize, though, that there's a CBD in the cannabinoids on the recreational wellness side. So we're working on a concept called the Cure that will allow us to serve that particular business channel. And we will leave all of the medical side where all of the doctors need to be involved, and what they do with their patients is not really anything that we need to worry about. We believe that channel is going to develop itself out. So in that mindset, we've not put a whole lot of faith in the fact that our revenue will continue on the med side. I just wanted to going into exactly what our revenue looks like today. If this was, fast forward, an amalgamation of all of the businesses that we have under LOI, meaning to acquire all the assets of, and that will happen post-RTO. We will have right now we have about 14.4 thousand, I don't know if it's pounds or kilograms, so I will correct myself and find the date for sure, of cultivation production right now on the cultivation side. Now, if we end up in 2021, we don't anticipate any of our cultivation expanding. We anticipate the only cultivation that we will see is if it becomes a package deal because of the legacy effect of these assets that we're acquiring started when we did, and they had to have a grow to self-sustain. But we look down into the parts of the world where the cannabis plant grows in such a way that it's natural, meaning close to the equator. You get 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. We have plantations in Colombia that are absolutely stopping cocaine production and turning to the legal channel of manufacturing cannabis. It is very clear that the ability for us growing indoors, even with the most automated, highest level of creativity, I'll call it, in ag space, we can't compete when we start seeing the commoditization, which is already happening, of cannabis. So we have recognized that we're going to leave that up to the overproduction of the rest of the world as it's ramping up. No different than when you have a density issue and you want to build a bunch of high-rises. They all get started and they always overshoot. So we realize that that's a means to an end for us. So if you look on this chart here, you see how our cultivation goes down over the next couple of years. So then the manufacturing side of it, as I was saying, we can manufacture nearly 2.5 million units a month, but we're only using 12% of that capacity. We anticipate that capacity to increase to 50% by the end of 2020. And then we have all of the dispensary locations branded The Joint, rolling out 25 of them or closing on 25 of them in 2019, and then an additional 25 in 2020 at an average revenue of $2.5 million on a top line. We're actually targeting revenue of $3.5 million and above, and we're probably averaging about 5 to 7 on the acquisitions we're making. So I'm saying that it's going to become a more competitive, normalized environment, and those revenue numbers will begin to drop. That brings us to, if you do the math, 100 stores at 2.5 million, that's 250 million in revenue by 2021. Then we have the ability to manufacture, fair enough, we have the ability to manufacture enough product right now to fill the retail channels that are legal in the infused product. Now going forward, if we max out our capacity at 2.5 million a month, that will give us an additional $500 million in revenue just in the manufacturing channel. And we have all of the distribution because we are making many acquisitions that is in the distribution space. So we are locking up the distributors, we're locking up the channels, and then we're marketing to the highest level and spending the necessary dollars to get all of our brands as a household brand. And then in R&D, we're sampling the consumer to see what brands they're liking and what new products to bring out to market, a lot like MBev does. Why are they a powerhouse? It's because they have all these synergies. They have all these tools. We have all of the tools to be able to not marry ourselves to one brand, and it was very difficult for our in-house R&D that developed the Endeavor brand to recognize this because there's so much sweat and tears that went into all of these brands by many, many people that it is very difficult for all to say, you know what? I see it as all of our brands, not my brand. And when we have that, now we have our R&D department developing products that we can now sample into the channel that we have. And by sampling it into the channel, then we get feedback on exactly what we're seeing. And then we change the formulations. And now the formulations and the product technology is to the point where in Colorado, we're at such an efficient market that we just assume all of the extraction processes is a commodity. We know where we can buy it. We're doing it ourselves. So many people are doing it and doing it well that we know that's no longer a problem. Now, some of the other states that are outside of Colorado and Washington who are far ahead in that area are still getting up to speed. So we are waiting as that channel opens up for us. It's not a matter of manufacturing. It's not a matter of technology. It's not a matter of cultivation. It's a matter of getting to the consumer and building out the platform of the retail so that we can touch them and then marketing into them. If we are successful in doing that, we really believe that we will be the first $1 billion in revenue company in the cannabis space. And quite frankly, it is ours, if you will, for the taking. We have been here since the beginning. We have maintained the learning curve that all of us need to have to even be up to speed, and all of the people that did that with us are on board today. And we believe that going forward, all of the parts of the vehicle are just being assembled here in the first part of 2019. And then we will bring it out and try everything we've got, including the capital that we are expecting from the marketplace under the ticker symbol CBIZ, soon to be trading on the CSE. We're just waiting for regulatory approval. And I want to just wrap it up by telling you this. We have proven the concept. We've defined the targets. We've initiated the amalgamation, if you will, not really roll-up strategy. Roll-up strategy means we had somewhere to put it. I had a conversation with one of our very important components of our business, and he was worried that we were going to he was going to get fired and he'd be out of the industry, and all of that he built was going to be gone. And I assured him that there was no way that was even possible, because if you look at our organization, what part of our business or what part of our organization is going to be able to absorb that? It is nothing more than a building block onto it. And that's really where we are right now, is building all the components together so that we have the entire engine. Then we're going to consolidate that brand revenue and push it through all the channels and get rid of all of the slack in the system, if you will. So if we have overlap in manufacturing, we're going to manufacture several products in the same channel, much like Coke does when they bring water to the market. All they did was stop before they got to Coke, or turn before they got to Sprite. Same thing. We have all of everything starts at cannabis, plant, moves to extraction, and then the various processes. They're not that different. So then we know that if we are able to manufacture to the level that we're talking about, and we don't have a capacity issue, all we really have to do is penetrate the market and get to the market. So we expand out the joint locations so that we know we have a retail channel that we can trust to put it into. And when all of that comes together, we believe that we will be the face of cannabis at that point, because we will be the first to do it, and we'll be the ones doing it right, as more will come. But we do believe that we are the leader and will continue to do so for the next foreseeable future. And I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be in front of you, and I know that we are wrapping up here and going to a networking event. I'll speak for my product development and retail, we will be available to speak with anybody that wants to talk with us, and we encourage any comment or question. Okay, thank you.